My fiancé announced, "My past is off limits. You're not allowed to ask questions." I replied, "Understood." Then I stopped sharing my present and future with her too. Her panic when she realized a one-way relationship doesn't work. I 32 male am a systems architect. I build structures. I look for weak points in code, and I ensure foundations are solid before we deploy anything. It's not just my job, it's how my brain works. I'm logical, sometimes to a fault. I thought I had applied that same logic to my relationship with my fiancé. We've been together for 3 years, engaged for 6 months. On paper, we made sense. In reality, I was debugging a system that was already corrupted. I just didn't have access to the logs yet. We were sitting at the kitchen island in my apartment. Well, technically my apartment since I bought it before we met, but she's lived here for 2 years. We were going over the wedding budget. I'm meticulous about finances. I grew up watching my parents scream over credit card bills, so financial transparency is my hill to die on. I had her bank statements and mine spread out to finalize the vendor deposits. I noticed a recurring transfer on her statement. It was $400 a month going to Arrowhead Consulting. It stood out because it was consistent, like a utility bill, but we didn't have any vendors by that name. I asked casually, "Hey, what's this Arrowhead charge? Is that a vendor I don't know about? We need to make sure we aren't duplicating deposits." The room went dead silent. The air shifted instantly. She snatched the paper out of my hand, her eyes wide, transitioning quickly from shock to defensive anger. "Why are you looking at that?" "It was right there," I said, confused. "We're merging our finances. I'm just categorizing expenses." "What is it?" She stood up, looking down at me with this mix of panic and entitlement that I hadn't seen before. "Listen to me. That is from before us. That is my business. My past is off limits. You're not allowed to ask questions about my finances prior to us meeting, and you aren't allowed to ask about people I knew back then. If you can't respect my privacy, we have a massive problem." I stared at her. Privacy is one thing. Secrecy regarding financial liabilities in a legal marriage is another. You're asking me to sign a contract blindly. If that's debt, it becomes our debt. "That is my boundary," she declared, crossing her arms. "My history is mine. Take it or leave it. You don't get to audit my life." She genuinely believed her presence was such a prize that I would just suspend all logic and self-preservation. She was banking on my emotional investment outweighing my common sense. She miscalculated. "Understood," I said. My voice was flat. She blinked, expecting a fight she could win with tears or accusations of me being controlling. When I didn't take the bait, she smirked, sipping her wine. "Good. I'm glad we settled that." I didn't sleep that night. My brain was running scenarios. You don't hide a $400 monthly payment to a consulting firm unless it's bad. The next morning, I initiated a new protocol. I went to the bank and opened a new high-yield savings account in my name only at a different institution. I routed my direct deposit there. I left just enough in our joint bills account to cover exactly 50% of the rent and utilities. 2 weeks later, I got my quarterly performance bonus. It was substantial, about $15,000 post-tax. Usually, we'd use this for a vacation or put it into the wedding fund. I transferred every cent to my private investment portfolio. When I got home, she was beaming. "Babe, I found a videographer. He's amazing, cinematic style. He's $6,000, but I told him to send you the contract." "I can't sign that," I said, taking off my boots. "Why not?" "It's not in the budget." "But you have your review. You always get a bonus," she pressed, her tone turning sharp. "My work life is my present," I said, opening the fridge. "And my career trajectory is my future. Since we're compartmentalizing, I realize you were right. Some things should remain private. I'm not discussing my income variations with you anymore." Her jaw dropped. "That's different. We're building a life together. You're being petty because I set a boundary. We're building a marriage based on your rules. I corrected. You walled off a foundation. I'm walling off the additions. The videographer is a no." She stormed off, slamming the bedroom door. That kicked off the Cold War. But she didn't realize that while she was playing checkers, I was already contacting a lawyer to understand community property laws. The lawyer told me bluntly, if she has undisclosed debt or legal judgments and you marry her, creditors can come after community assets. You need to know what she's hiding. That night, I hired a private investigator. I gave him the name Arrowhead Consulting. I told him to find out who owned it and why my fiancée was paying them like clockwork. The atmosphere in the house for the next week was toxic. She tried everything to break me. First, it was the guilt trips from her mother. I started getting texts like, "A real man provides without playing games. Why are you making her cry?" I didn't respond. Then she got dirty. I came home one day to find my custom-built gaming PC, a rig I'd spent about $4,000 on and countless hours building, sitting in a puddle of water. "Oh my God," she said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy as she watched me stare at the fried motherboard. I was watering the plant on the shelf, and I slipped. I guess it was an accident. "Maybe now you'll have time to focus on the wedding instead of games? You'll probably have to use that bonus money to fix it, huh?" I looked at the plant. It was a cactus. It requires a teaspoon of water once a month. The puddle on my desk was half a liter. This was sabotage. "It's fine," I said, forcing a calm I didn't feel. "I have insurance for the parts." I didn't. But I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction. She escalated to withholding affection, sleeping in the guest room, telling me she couldn't be with someone who didn't trust her. The irony was suffocating. 3 days later, the PI emailed me. Subject: report completed priority. I opened the file at work. My blood ran cold. Arrowhead Consulting wasn't a business. It was a shell company registered to a law firm specializing in criminal restitution collection. But that was just the appetizer. The PI dug up court records from 2 counties over, records that were sealed under a deferred adjudication agreement, which is why they didn't pop on a standard employment background check. 5 years ago, my fiancée hadn't just been living her life. She had been involved in an organized insurance fraud scheme. She and an ex-boyfriend had been staging car accidents to collect injury payouts. She testified against a boyfriend to avoid prison, but she was hit with a massive restitution order. $85,000. She wasn't paying off a credit card. She was paying the state to stay out of jail. But the PI found something else. A marriage license. She had married the co-conspirator, a guy named Rick. There was no divorce decree on file. The divorce had been filed but dismissed 3 years ago for lack of prosecution, meaning they stopped doing the paperwork. She was still legally married. I sat in my office chair, staring at the screen. If I married her, I'd be aiding in bigamy, though she'd be the one committing the crime. But financially, if we married and commingled assets and she defaulted on that restitution, the state could potentially garnish our joint accounts. She needed my clean credit and my income to refinance that debt or pay it off. She was looking for a bailout, not a husband. I went home that evening with a dangerous level of calm. She was in the kitchen, cooking lasagna, a peace offering. "I've been thinking," she said, pouring me wine. "Maybe we got off on the wrong foot. I love you. I just want us to be a team." "A team requires transparency," I said. She smiled, stepping closer, putting her hands on my chest. "I know. So I was thinking, for the house we want to buy next year, my credit is a little dinged up from student loans. If we want that good interest rate, maybe you should put me on the deed of this apartment for now. It boosts my asset-to-debt ratio. My dad said it would help us get the big house later. We can just do a quitclaim deed. My friend is a notary. We can do it tomorrow." The audacity was breathtaking. She wanted on the title of my premarital asset. Once she was on that deed, she owned half. If we divorced, or if her creditors came knocking, I'd lose 50% of my equity instantly. She was trying to raid my life before the wedding even happened. "That's an interesting idea," I said, playing along. "But the bank usually requires full financial disclosure for title transfers." "We don't need the bank," she said quickly. "We own it outright. It's just paperwork. Let's just sign it and celebrate." Tomorrow is a bit soon, I said, but let's discuss it at dinner on Friday. I want to take you out. Somewhere nice. Invite your parents. I want to make a proper announcement about our future. Her eyes lit up. She thought she had won. She thought I was folding. Oh my God, really? Yes. They've been so worried about us. Perfect, I said. Friday, the Italian place downtown. I spent the next 2 days moving every liquid asset I had into a trust one had set up years ago for family estate planning. I consulted my lawyer one last time. He laughed dryly when I told him about the marriage license. She's committing fraud by inducement if she signs a marriage license with you. Do not let her on that deed. Don't worry, I said. I have a different document for her. Friday arrived. We sat at the table, me, my fiancée, and her parents. Her mother was beaming, likely thinking I was about to announce the house transfer. Her father looked smug, sipping his scotch like he knew his daughter had successfully trapped a high earner. So, her dad started, I hear you guys are making some smart financial moves, putting family first. Good man. Absolutely, I said, smiling. Transparency is key. My fiancée squeezed my hand under the table. She actually had the quitclaim deed in her purse. I had seen the envelope. Actually, I said, reaching into my jacket pocket, I have something I need to clear up before we move forward with the wedding or the house. I didn't pull out a deed. I pulled out a thick manila envelope containing the PI's report, photos of her mugshot from 5 years ago, and a certified copy of her active marriage license to Rick. I placed them gently on the table, right next to the breadbasket. Honey, what is this? She asked, her voice trembling. She recognized the mugshot instantly. Her face went pale white. That, I said, is your past, the one that was off limits. The silence at the table was violent. Her mother reached for the papers, but my fiancée slapped her hand down on them. Don't touch that, she shrieked. The facade of the sweet bride crumbled. Why not? I asked, leaning back. It's just history, right? Or is it current events? Because according to the county clerk, you're still Mrs. Richard Vance. Her father choked on a scotch. What the hell are you talking about? She's married, I said calmly to her father, and she owes the state $85,000 for insurance fraud, which I assume is why she was so desperate to get her name on the deed to my apartment, to shield herself or pay it off with my equity. You had me investigated? She hissed, tears streaming down her face, not of remorse, but of rage. You violated my privacy. I can sue you for stalking. This is illegal. Public records. I corrected. And since you tried to defraud me into a bigamous marriage to cover your criminal restitution, I think the police will be more interested in your activities than mine. It was a mistake, she yelled, causing the couple at the next table to stare. Rick and I filed the papers. The lawyer must have messed up. And the money, that was Rick's fault. I was a victim. Does Rick know you're engaged? I asked, does the court know you're trying to transfer assets to hide them? Because that Arrowhead payment looks a lot like you're paying probation fees, not old debt. Her mother stood up, face red. How dare you humiliate her like this? You promised to take care of her. If you loved her, you'd help her fix this, not ambush her. Love isn't a financial bailout for fraud, I said. Then came the entitlement. She glared at me, wiping her face. You make 3 times what I do. You have a paid-off condo and investments. You wouldn't even miss the $80,000. We are supposed to be partners. You're selfish. You were going to let me drown just to prove a point. I was going to marry you, I said coldly. I was going to share everything. Until you told me I wasn't allowed to know who you were. You wanted a wallet, not a husband. I placed a single sheet of paper on top of the pile. It was a notice to vacate. My apartment is in my name. You aren't on the lease, and you aren't on the deed. In this state, you are considered a guest at will. You have 30 days to leave. But given the hostile environment, I'd suggest you go to your parents' house tonight. You can't kick me out, she screamed. I have rights. I've lived there for 2 years. I'll claim squatters' rights. I'll tell everyone you hit me. There it was. The nuclear option. She was willing to destroy my reputation, to keep her claws in my life. I pulled out my phone. I anticipated that. That's why I've been recording this entire conversation since I sat down. This is a one-party consent state. Your threat to file a false police report is now on audio. Her father looked like he was about to have a stroke. He grabbed his daughter's arm. We're leaving. Now. But, Daddy, he has to pay, she wailed, sounding like a toddler denied a toy. The flowers. The dress. I canceled the venue this morning, I said, and the caterer. I lost my deposits, but I saved the rest. As for your dress, I hope you kept the receipt. But since you put on my credit card without asking last week, I've already reported that card stolen, and the charge is fraudulent. You'll need to sort that out with the merchant. She looked at me with pure hatred. I hope you die alone. Better alone than broke and in prison for being an accomplice. I replied. They left. It was a chaotic exit, with her knocking over a chair. I sat there for a moment, the adrenaline finally fading, leaving me exhausted. I ordered neat whiskey and paid the check. I went home to an empty apartment. I changed the locks immediately. I had the locksmith on standby. I packed her things into boxes and stacked them in the garage. But I knew it wasn't over. The next morning, I was served with a temporary restraining order, TRO. She had gone to the magistrate and claimed I had threatened her life. It was a tactical move to force me out of my own home and gain leverage so she could move back in. I went to court with my lawyer 3 days later. She showed up with a public defender, looking frail and terrified, a performance worthy of an Oscar. She claimed I was abusive, controlling, and had threatened to end her if she left me. My lawyer let her finish her testimony. Then he submitted the evidence. Exhibit A, the audio recording from the restaurant where she threatened to lie about abuse. Exhibit B, time-stamped video footage from the apartment. I had installed hidden cameras in the common areas 3 days before the dinner, anticipating she might try to come back. The footage showed me calmly packing her boxes while she wasn't there. Then, it showed her entering the apartment 2 hours after the dinner, using a spare key she had hidden under a hallway loose board, and proceeding to smash my TV with a golf club and rip her own blouse before calling police to file the report. The judge's face turned a shade of crimson I'll never forget. He looked at her, then at her lawyer. "Ma'am," the judge said, his voice low and dangerous. "You are dangerously close to perjury. In fact, based on this video evidence of you filing a false report and destroying property, I am dismissing this TRO immediately. Furthermore, I am forwarding this footage to the district attorney's office." She started to panic. "But he tricked me. He hid his money." "Dismissed!" The judge banged the gavel. The fallout was swift. Her Arrowhead probation officer caught wind of the new police report regarding the false accusations and the video of her destroying property. Since she was on deferred adjudication, any new violation could revoke her probation. She was arrested 2 weeks later for violating the terms of her release and for criminal mischief regarding my property. I didn't relish seeing her in handcuffs, but I didn't look away either. She had tried to ruin my life, seize my home, and jail me with lies. I spent the next month scrubbing my life clean of her. I sold the apartment, too many bad memories, and bought a small house with a workshop purely in my name. I heard through mutual friends that she served 6 months in county jail. Her husband, Rick, apparently surfaced a file for a real divorce, so he wouldn't be liable for her new legal fees. Her parents had to mortgage their house to pay her legal bills. They tried to contact me once to beg for help for old time's sake. I blocked the number without a second thought. The experience changed me. I audit my personal life as rigorously as my code now. I learned that privacy in a relationship is valid, but secrecy regarding things that can legally destroy your partner is just deception. I'm dating again, slowly, but if anyone demands blind trust before earning it, I walk away.